I'm Emily, and I grew up in the shadow of my older sister, Sarah. Our house was always busy with family, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. They would gather in our backyard for my mom's famous barbecue and to watch Sarah perform. Our backyard felt like a stage. With a big oak tree and a well-kept lawn, Dad would grill, filling the air with the smell of food, while Mom made sure everyone had a drink. "Sarah, sweetie," Aunt Marge would call, "why don't you sing a song for us?" And just like that, all eyes would turn to Sarah. She'd hop up onto a chair, her golden curls bouncing, and with a big smile, she'd sing, doing her best Celine Dion impression. The adults would cheer, and Mom and Dad would smile proudly. Meanwhile, I'd stay in the background, trying to stay out of sight. I didn't want to sing, because whenever I tried, it sounded terrible. And poetry? Forget it. The words always got tangled up, making me feel embarrassed. I heard my relatives say I was nothing like Sarah. It wasn't just them, Mom and Dad made it clear who their favorite was. While Sarah went to dance classes, singing lessons, and art workshops, I was left to do my own thing. I didn't mind though. I found peace in the old books around our house. The only person who seemed to understand me was Great Aunt Maggie. She would find me reading in the treehouse or behind the garage. "What adventure are you on today, Emily?" she'd ask, sitting next to me. I'd smile and show her the book. "I'm reading about ancient Egypt." Maggie would smile back. "You're a smart girl, don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those moments with Maggie meant a lot to me. She never asked me to perform or be someone I wasn't. With her, I could just be me, the quiet, book-loving girl. But even with Maggie's support, I still felt like the forgotten child. Sarah always got praise and gifts for her talents, while I got hand-me-downs and sighs. School became my escape. I wasn't popular, but I liked being in class. I focused hard on learning everything my teachers taught. "Mrs. Thompson," I'd say after class, "can you explain mitosis again? I didn't understand it." She'd smile and say, "Of course, Emily, let's go over it." When teachers were busy, I'd ask for book suggestions. Soon, my backpack was full of extra books, and I would stay up late reading them, determined to learn everything. By high school, I was the top student in my class. For once, I was good at something. I even made a few friends, other quiet book lovers like me. As graduation got closer, our house was all about Sarah. Mom was always helping her prepare her portfolio for a fancy college's advertising and PR program. "Oh, honey, this idea is perfect," Mom would say, looking at Sarah's work. "You're so talented." I'd roll my eyes and go to my room, focusing on my studies. But one night, during yet another family dinner about Sarah's college plans, I snapped. "I'm going to college too," I blurted out. "I want to study management." The room went silent, and then, to my shock and pain, they all started laughing. "Oh, sweetie," Mom said, wiping tears from her eyes, "we don't have money for that. You'll need to get a job after graduation. You're just not as gifted as your sister." It felt like a slap in the face. But I'm the top student in my class," I stammered, my face burning with anger. "I get straight A's." I ran to my room, grabbed my report card, and slammed it on the table. They all leaned in to look, surprised. "Well, I'll be damned," Dad said, scratching his head. "When did this happen?" "It's been happening for years," I snapped. "Not that any of you ever noticed." Mom looked guilty, but Dad spoke up quickly. "Look, it doesn't change anything. We've spent all our savings on Sarah's education. There's nothing left for you. You'll work at my cousin Frank's restaurant after graduation." I turned and ran upstairs, ignoring their calls. I slammed my bedroom door so hard the walls shook. As I fell onto my bed, crying, I felt something inside me change. "Fine," I thought, clenching my fists. "If they won't help me, I'll find another way. I'll show them what Emily can do." The next few months flew by. Sarah went off to college, with lots of tears and hugs from Mom and Dad. Meanwhile, I focused harder on my studies, determined to finish at the top of my class. During this time, I spent more and more time with Great Aunt Maggie. Her small, cozy house became a safe place for me away from the tension at home. One afternoon, as we sat together in her sunny kitchen sipping tea, she asked the question I had been dreading. "So, Emily," she said, looking at me with kind eyes, "what are your plans after graduation?" I stared into my teacup, trying to hold back tears. I don't know, Aunt Maggie. Mom and Dad won't help me with college. They say there's no money left after paying for Sarah's education." Maggie was quiet for a moment, then she reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. "Emily, dear, I've saved some money. I'd like to give it to you for college. You're so smart, and I won't let your talents go to waste." Her words hit me hard, and I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. I was overwhelmed by her kindness and the realization that my dreams might still be possible. "Thank you," I cried, hugging her tightly. "Thank you so much, Aunt Maggie." The months passed quickly, and before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation with my diploma in hand. I looked out at the crowd and saw Aunt Maggie beaming at me. My parents were there too, looking proud but a little uncomfortable. That evening, while I was going through college brochures, Mom walked in. "Emily, honey," she said sweetly, "your dad's cousin Frank called. He has a waitressing job for you at his restaurant. Isn't that exciting?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom, I won't need that job. I'm going to college." Dad appeared in the doorway, frowning. "And how exactly do you plan to pay for that?" he asked, sounding upset. "Aunt Maggie is helping me," I said, standing tall. "She's giving me her savings for tuition." There was a long silence. Then, to my surprise, Dad's face turned red with anger. "Absolutely not," he shouted. "If Maggie has money, it should go to Sarah. She needs a car for her advertising job next year." I was shocked. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "This is my chance to get an education and make something of myself." "Don't be selfish, Emily," Mom said. "Your sister needs that money more than you do." "No," I said firmly, my voice steady despite my nerves. "This is my money, and I'm using it for college." End of discussion. After that, things at home were unbearable. My parents either ignored me or snapped at me over the smallest things. The atmosphere was tense. One night after a big argument, I called Aunt Maggie in tears and told her everything. "Pack your bags, sweetheart," she said without hesitation. "You're moving in with me." The next day, I packed up everything I could carry and took a cab to Aunt Maggie's. As I drove away, I watched my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. When I arrived at Aunt Maggie's, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. The summer passed quickly with all the preparations, and before I knew it, I was stepping onto the campus of State University. Thanks to my excellent grades and Aunt Maggie's help, I was starting the management program I had always dreamed of. On my first day of classes, I felt like I was floating. As I sat in my introduction to business lecture, absorbing every word, I couldn't help but think, I made it, I'm really here. Meanwhile, Sarah was starting her senior year at her fancy college. I hadn't heard much from her or my parents since I moved out, but I didn't let it bother me. I was too busy enjoying my new freedom and the excitement of college life. About a month into the semester, Aunt Maggie called me. "Emily dear," she said, her voice uncertain, "I think you should sit down for this." My heart skipped a beat as she told me what had been happening back home. Apparently, Sarah had come back home unexpectedly, saying she dropped out of college because she was pregnant. Aunt Maggie told me that Sarah wasn't taking it seriously at all. "Oh, don't worry," she'd said, tossing her hair. "The baby's father is rich. We'll be getting married soon." But things didn't go as planned. It turned out Sarah's boyfriend wasn't as committed as she thought. When he found out she'd been seeing his friend too, everything fell apart. Now, they didn't even know who the father was. Aunt Maggie sighed, and I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process it all. Part of me felt some strange satisfaction. Sarah, the golden child, had fallen off her pedestal, but mostly, I just felt sad for her and the mess she was in. The drama continued over the next few months. Aunt Maggie kept me updated on all the family gossip I missed since I wasn't around anymore. When Sarah's baby was born, a DNA test confirmed her boyfriend was the father, but instead of a fairy tale wedding, he only agreed to pay child support. The final blow came when Sarah, desperate for work, took a job as a waitress at Uncle Frank's restaurant, the same job my parents had tried to force on me. When I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of emotions. There was a small, petty part of me that wanted to rub my success in the family's face, but mostly, I just felt thankful for how far I had come and for everything I had now. Years passed quickly with lectures, exams, and late-night study sessions. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation, my management degree in hand. As I scanned the crowd, I saw Aunt Maggie beaming with pride, tears in her eyes. Thanks to my top grades and glowing recommendations from my professors, I landed a job as a manager at the Gilded Fork, one of the best restaurants in the city. The salary was more than I had ever dreamed of, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly successful. With my first paycheck, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I walked into an electronics store and bought the latest smartphone for Aunt Maggie. When I gave it to her, her face lit up. "Oh, Emily," she gasped, turning the phone over in her hands, "this is too much." I smiled, already pulling out my own phone. "Not at all. Now, let me show you how to use it." In the next few weeks, I spent more time teaching Aunt Maggie how to use social media. She picked it up quickly, especially loving Facebook's video feature. Her page became filled with clips of her garden, her cat, and her famous apple pie in progress. I'd watch her videos during my lunch breaks and always make sure to comment or like them. It became our way of staying connected, even when I was busy with work. One day, as I was getting ready for the dinner rush, my phone buzzed. I looked at it, surprised to see my mother's name. We hadn't spoken in years. Emily, her voice sounded unsure, we were hoping you might come over to talk. After a long pause, I agreed. That Sunday, I found myself standing on the porch of my childhood home, my hand hovering over the doorbell. Before I could ring it, the door opened. Emily, my mother pulled me into a tight hug. Oh, sweetie, it's so good to see you. Inside, I found my father, Sarah, and a toddler I guessed was my niece. The atmosphere wasn't as bad as I expected, just tense, not hostile. You look good, kiddo, Dad said, his voice gruff but warm. We hear you're doing well. I nodded, still cautious. I'm a manager at the Gilded Fork now. Their eyes widened at the name of the restaurant. Mom cleared her throat. That's wonderful, dear. Actually, that's part of why we wanted to talk to you. Over the next hour, they apologized for how they treated me and admitted they'd been wrong to ignore my potential. Then came the real reason for the visit. Emily, Mom said, looking at Sarah, we were wondering if you might help Sarah get a job at your restaurant. I looked at Sarah, who was bouncing her daughter on her knee. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'll see what I can do, I said finally. No promises, but I'll ask. True to my word, I spoke to Mr. Reeves, the restaurant owner, about Sarah. To my surprise, he agreed to give her a chance as an administrator. Sarah started the next week, and to my shock, she excelled. She was on time, efficient, and customers loved her charm. As the weeks passed, I found myself more at ease with her. We weren't best friends, but we developed a polite, professional relationship. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, life threw me another curveball, this time, a good one. Mr. Reeves called me into his office one day. My heart raced, wondering if I'd messed up. Instead, he grinned at me. Emily, how would you like to help me expand the business? Before I knew it, I was managing the opening of 3 new restaurants. My days became a blur of meetings, menu tastings, and number crunching. It was exhausting, but it was everything I'd dreamed of. With the promotion came a big pay raise, and suddenly, I had more money than I knew what to do with. That's when my parents started calling. Emily, the roof is leaking, Mom would say, her voice hesitant. We were wondering if you could help out. I was surprised at how good it felt to say yes, to solve their problems with a simple transfer of money. It started with the roof, then a new water heater, and soon I was funding a complete home renovation. As their financial situation improved, thanks to my monthly contributions, the big family parties started again. But this time, when I went, things were different. Have you heard about Emily's latest project? Mom would say proudly. She's opening a new restaurant downtown. We're so proud of her. I'd catch Sarah's eye across the room, and she'd give me a small smile. She was doing well, too, having been promoted to head administrator at the Gilded Fork. My girls, Dad would say, with an arm around both of us, both of them making their old man proud. Part of me wanted to remind them of how they treated me before, to hold on to some bitterness, but a bigger part of me just enjoyed the warmth of their approval, the thing I'd craved for so long. As I drove home that night, I felt a sense of peace settle in. Finally, after all these years, I had what I'd always wanted, success in my career and the love and appreciation of my family. I wasn't just the golden child anymore. I was my own person, standing on my own 2 feet. It was a slow Sunday afternoon when everything fell apart. I was sitting back, drinking coffee, and scrolling through Facebook when I noticed Aunt Maggie had posted a new video. It was from a family event I had missed because of work. I clicked on it, expecting to see the usual happy moments. But what I saw made me feel sick. My parents were in the video, drunk and acting really self-righteous. Mom was talking loudly, her words all over the place. And Emily, that lazy freeloader, she was saying, she never helps us, we're not rich, you know. Dad added, his face bright red. Exactly, we're fine because of Sarah. She's the one keeping that restaurant running. Emily just depends on her. The video showed other family members agreeing, some even saying more bad things. Sarah was sitting quietly in the corner, looking uncomfortable but not saying anything. When the video ended, I just sat there, shocked. How could they say all of this about me? After everything I'd done for them, after all the money I'd given, how could they be so cruel? With trembling hands, I looked at the comments. I saw my parents' messages. Maggie, take this video down now. You had no right to post it. Take it down right away. But what Aunt Maggie said in reply made me start crying. I don't know how to delete videos, and even if I did, I wouldn't. It's time everyone saw the truth about how you treat Emily. She's the one supporting you, and this is how you repay her? Shame on you both. I sat there for what felt like hours, replaying the video over and over, reading the comments again and again. The pain of betrayal was unbearable, reopening old wounds I thought had healed. Finally, I called Aunt Maggie. Oh, Emily, dear, she said when she picked up, her voice full of sympathy. I guess you saw the video? Yeah, I said, my voice weak from crying. I can't believe it, Aunt Maggie, how could they do this? I could hear the anger in her voice as she spoke. They've always treated you this way, Emily. You just didn't see it before. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but maybe it's for the best. You deserve to know the truth. We talked for hours, with Aunt Maggie comforting me as I went through shock, anger, and sadness. As the day turned to night, I made up my mind. I'm cutting them off, I told Aunt Maggie, my voice steady despite the pain. No more money, no more help. They've made their choices, and now they have to face the consequences. The days after seeing the video were some of the hardest of my life. My phone kept buzzing with messages and calls from my parents, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Their cruel words kept echoing in my mind. After a week of silence, I sent them a short, cold text. I've seen the video. I know what you really think of me. Don't contact me again. The money stops now. Their replies came immediately, at first apologetic. Emily, sweetie, we're so sorry. We didn't mean it. Please forgive us. But as days passed and I didn't respond, their tone changed. We're your parents. You owe us. Each message hurt more, but I stayed strong. I had given them chance after chance, and they had thrown it all away. It was time to break free. Sarah stayed out of it, though. At work, she was professional and focused. If she was upset about losing our parents' financial support, she didn't show it. We kept our relationship polite but distant. I'm not taking sides, she told me one day. This is between you and them. I nodded, understanding that she had her own family to worry about now, even though part of me wished she'd speak up for me. Over the following months, I grew closer to Aunt Maggie. Our weekly Sunday video calls became the highlight of my week. She would tell me stories about her garden or her latest baking projects, bringing some peace and normalcy into my life during the storm. You're doing the right thing, Emily, Aunt Maggie would reassure me when doubts crept in. Don't let them manipulate you anymore. To my surprise, other family members started reaching out, too. Cousin Sarah, who had always been kind to me at family events, sent me a heartfelt email. I saw the video. I just want you to know I think you're amazing, Emily. Everything you've achieved and how you've helped everyone, you're an inspiration. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Uncle Bob, Dad's brother, called me out of the blue. Kid, I've watched you grow up into this incredible woman. Your parents are fools if they don't see how special you are. You've got family in your corner. Never forget that. These messages of support were a comfort, healing my heart. I realized that even though I'd lost my parents, I had a family who truly appreciated me for who I was. As the year ended, Mr. Reeves called me into his office. I walked in, nervous, wondering if the family drama had affected my work, but instead, he smiled warmly and said, Emily, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO of the restaurant group. I stood there, stunned into silence. Finally, I managed to ask, are you sure? He nodded, his eyes shining. I've never been more sure of anything. You've earned this, Emily. You're the reason this business is thriving. It's time for you to lead it. As I left his office, my mind racing with possibilities, I realized something important. The little girl who had been ignored and underestimated had grown into a woman who had exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own.